Hey, 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 welcome to the long-awaited Big City Bonnet pattern walkthrough. I'm going to take you step by step through each technique you need to know to make the pattern. All you need to know is the knit stitch and the purl stitch, and you'll be golden. I will explain absolutely everything else. This is my favorite pattern that I've put out. As you can see by all the different versions I've made, it is super versatile. Since you hold two strands of yarn together, you can make it in one color or two for some nice variation. There are different ways to do the bonnet ties. I've made these as gifts. They knit up super fast. As a beginner, I bet you can make one in a day, if not an afternoon. I'm a pretty experienced knitter and I can make one in just 2-ish hours. So I never go long without casting on one of these. All that you need to make it is 2 balls of size 4 yarn. So this can be, again, the same color or 2 different colors, 6.5mm circular needles, 5.5mm circular needles. These can be any length. I usually use around 16-inch cords, tapestry needle to weave in your ends, and a measuring tape to measure the length of your bonnet ties. Of course, some scissors and a copy of my Big City Bonnet knitting pattern. This is a pattern walkthrough video, so I'm going to show you how to do each technique needed to make the bonnet, but to have specific row numbers, stitch numbers, measurements, all that good stuff, head to the link down below to grab a copy of the pattern. Some optional materials if you like to use a row counter or a stitch holder. There are other ways to hold your stitches, but I think these tools are super helpful. Throughout the whole pattern, you're going to hold your yarn double. So what that means is that you're pulling off of 2 different balls of yarn, 2 strands that you're going to put on your needle together to count as 1 stitch. That's how we make this cool color variation. I'll show you in a sec. But we're going to start with the long tail cast on. So put a slip knot onto your needle, grab your tail, wrap it around your thumb, and then you're going to stick your needle underneath that thumb yarn, wrap clockwise with your working yarn around the needle, and then place the thumb loop over. This places another stitch on your needle. So underneath, wrap around, and then place a loop over. You're going to keep doing this, and each time that you complete those steps, you're adding a new cast on stitch to your needle. Keep doing this until you have the right number all lined up. We start with the basic knit stitch, and you can see that I'm going through both strands of yarn because they count as 1 stitch. Same thing with purling. Make sure you're going through both strands. That's holding double. It's 1 stitch. As you keep going back and forth with knit and purl rows, you'll see your lovely texture start to build up. Now it's time to grab your stitch holder. If you're not using a stitch holder, just use a different needle. That's totally fine. Pull your circular needle through so that the tip is on the left side, not where your working yarn is. This will make our job a little easier in the future. So you're going to open up that stitch holder or take your other needle and just start slipping each of these stitches onto it, one by one. Don't do anything to them, just put them onto this stitch holder. Close that up to keep them safe. We'll think about them later, but for right now, cut your working yarn, and we're going to start picking up stitches starting at the bottom right-hand corner, and we're going to go all the way around. So at that bottom right-hand corner, how you pick up a stitch is you're going to stick your needle into the side of it, and then pull up some yarn. Each time you do this, you're pulling up a stitch. It really is easy as that. Just make sure that you're pulling up through the same row of stitches each time so that it looks nice and neat. You're going to keep doing that up that side, sticking in your needle and pulling up some yarn. As you keep going, you'll be able to see the stitches start to line up on your needle, and once you finish that right-hand side, you're going to pull the circular needle all the way through so that those right-hand side stitches are on the cord part, and you can angle your needle to begin knitting off of your stitch holder. So open it up, and it's basically just going to act like a different left-hand needle. You're going to grab your working yarn and knit onto those stitches as if you were knitting them off of a needle normally. Going to go across everything that you have saved on that stitch holder or extra needle. Again, when you get to the end of that row, you're going to pull your whole needle through so that all the stitches that you have picked up and knit are on the cord, and you can angle your right-hand needle down the left-hand side to pick up some more stitches there. So same way as you did at the beginning, you're going to stick them into the same column of stitches, pull up some yarn all the way down, and when you get to the end, you should be able to pull your needle through and see that you have picked up stitches on 3 of the 4 sides of your knit rectangle. Now that you've picked up all of these stitches, it's time to use them to build the body of your bonnet. We're going to alternate purl and knit rows. So turn your piece over, find where the working yarn is, and you're going to begin going with basic purl stitches across the whole row. When you get to the end, turn it around again, and you can go with a knit row. Once you've done this a few times, you're going to be able to see the top of the bonnet start to form. You'll have 2 kind of seams down either side, and then the back will come off seamlessly. So this little cap is starting to form. Keep going back and forth with those rows until you've knit the entire length of your bonnet. We're going to switch needle sizes to do the bottom edge, so keep your stitches as usual on your left hand needle, and then in your right hand hold your new needle. We're going to alternate between knit and purl stitches. This is called 1 by 1 ribbing. Once you get to the end of this first row, you should have knit everything onto your new needle and be able to get rid of the old needle size and just continue as normal on this smaller needle size to create a nice stretchy little rib to be at the bottom edge of your bonnet. So for the next few rows, you're going to continue with the pattern of knit and purl stitches alternating to create those nice ribbed lines at the bottom edge. We're going to do a very basic cast off and do it in pattern. So all that means is that when there's a knit stitch, you're going to knit it. When there's a purl stitch, you're going to purl it. So knit the first one, purl the second one, and then pull that first stitch over the second one to get it off of your needle. Now knit again, pull that stitch over to get it off of your needle. The next one will be a purl stitch, so on and so forth. You're going to start being able to see all these stitches cast off to create a clean edge at the edge of your bonnet. Continue doing this across the entire row, and when you get to the end, pull out a big enough loop that you can cut your working yarn, pull it through to fasten things off. You'll weave in this end later. You've now done the entire body of your bonnet. We just need to add some ribbing that will go around your face. So to do this, we got to pick up some more stitches. Insert your needle into the bottom left-hand corner of your bonnet and start pulling up stitches as we did before, making sure they're all coming from the same column of stitches. You'll start picking up the left side over the top of the bonnet and all the way down the right side to do the entire border. Again, we'll be alternating between knit and purl stitches to create a border of 1 by 1 ribbing. Do this for a few rows, and when you get to the end, we're going to do the same basic cast off as before. So following in the pattern, knitting any knit stitches that you see, purling any purl stitches that you see, and every time you have 2 stitches on your needle, pulling the rightmost stitch over the left stitch. If you finish that edge, you are nearly done with the bonnet. All we have to do is to add the bonnet ties, but this is usually where I take a break to weave in my ends. So all of those different ends that you have dropped throughout the pattern, we're going to take our tapestry needle, insert the end through there, and then just weave them on the back side through a few stitches back and forth to make sure that it looks nice and neat and those stay secure. Just cut the end when you're done. Now we're going to attach our bonnet ties to the bottom corner of each edge of the bonnet, facing downwards. There are a few ways to do this. The first is an I-cord, which involves picking up a few stitches. I usually pick up 2, but you can do anywhere between 2 and 6, depending on how thick you want your straps to be. So you're going to pick up 2 stitches on the bottom edge, making sure that the last one you pick up is right in the corner. And then we're going to pull our circular needle all the way through so that our stitches start on the opposite side of our working yarn. So this is a little counterintuitive, but you want your working yarn on the last stitch, not the first stitch. As you start knitting, this is going to pull the yarn around so that all of your stitches start knitting in a circle. So once you finish that first row, just basic knit stitch, again, pull your circular needle all the way through, knit again, and you're going to start seeing as you go that these wrap up into a nice little cord. This is where some double pointed needles might be helpful. I don't have a pair, so this works fine, but that's usually people use double pointed needles for. You can see that lovely tubular shape starting to form. This looks super nice. To cast off an I-cord, all you do is a basic cast off. So you'll have 2 stitches on your needle, pull the rightmost stitch over the leftmost stitch, make a little bit of a loop so that you can cut your yarn, pull it through, and then weave that end just up into the cord. Then you're going to also weave in the end that is attached to the bonnet. Just weave that end into the bonnet to hold it nice and secure into the body. Obviously, if you were doing an I-cord tie, you would make yours a lot longer, but I'm going to frog mine back and do a crochet chain instead. All you need to know to do this is stick your crochet hook into the corner, pull up some yarn, and you're going to keep repeating the same motion over and over. So wrap some yarn around your hook, pull it through that loop, wrap some yarn around the hook, pull it through the loop. You can see that this is a super fast and simple way to build up a long chain pretty fast, which is why I like to do it. You can use any size crochet hook. I'm using 5mm, but lots of different things would work. Every once in a while, set your chain down and grab your measuring tape to measure and see how long it's getting. Lots of different lengths will work. It's really just up to personal preference, but when you feel like it's at the right length, then you're going to tie it off. All you do is pull a nice big loop, cut your working yarn so that you can fasten it off again, very similar to knitting bind off, and then you can take your tapestry needle and weave that end up into the cord, cut the end, and again weave the end that you've attached to the bonnet through the back side of the bonnet, cut that end, and you will be good to go. Just add in a second cord of the same size and your bonnet is complete. A lot of fun trying out different ways to do these ties, whether it's changing the thickness or the length. I think it's fun to see if you like making the bow thicker or having longer tails hanging off the bow. Lots of cute options, so play around with it. Here's a little try on of how mine turned out. I did this with a strand of pink yarn and a strand of orange, which came together to make this like nearly neon, which I think is super fun, especially when things are kind of dull outside for winter. Add a little color to it. I love the way that it turned out, and I hope that you enjoyed yours as well. Again, the pattern is linked below. Make sure to subscribe to see more tutorials and knitting ideas and inspiration. Thanks so much for tuning in. Have a great day.